If we're talking about relatively recent important political developments in China, the one at the forefront has to be the rise and subsequent downfall of Bo Xilai. In just 2 short years, Bo Xilai went from a possible contender for China's next leader to a life sentence in prison. The story of Bo Xilai has to be one of the most sensational, controversial, and important stories in modern China. Bo Xilai, when he was in power, was a high-profile supporter of various policies of what has been called China's New Left. This political movement clashes with the increasingly market-oriented direction of the central government, advocating a return to state-owned corporations and Maoist culture, as well as increased funding for social programs. Bo's charisma and visibility made the New Left a mainstream movement, but his dramatic downfall amid corruption scandals severely damaged the movement's credibility. As a result, the New Left has largely retreated into intellectual and academic circles, losing its most influential political advocate. Before we get started, this is a pretty recent topic by my channel's standards. The main events of this story happened only a decade ago, and most of the people involved are still alive. I usually shy away from topics where the people I'm talking about are still around, but the events seem to be fairly settled with not much in dispute. Plus, it's just a plainly interesting story, and I don't want to wait 20 years to talk about it. Bo Xilai was born on July 3, 1949 in Beijing, just 3 months before the People's Republic of China would be proclaimed. By all accounts, Bo had a very privileged upbringing, in no small part due to his father, Bo Yibo. Bo Yibo was a very early supporter of the Communist Party, joining in 1925, shortly after its founding. He ended up serving as Mao's finance minister after the Civil War, and held other various high posts until he was purged as part of the Cultural Revolution. Bo Xilai attended prestigious schools in Beijing growing up, and pretty much got the best education you could get in China at the time. One school he attended was the Beijing No. 4 Middle School, where in August 1966, students there organized to create a little group called the Red Guards. This was one of the first Red Guard groups in the country, debatably even the first. The children in this group were almost entirely the children of high-ranking people in the government, and frequently clashed violently with other Red Guard groups. Mao quickly became upset with the kids of people in his government running around attacking police officers and vandalizing property, and declared the organization illegal around late 1967. Bo Yibo also fell out of favor with the party around this time, and after some internal pressure was placed on him, Mao ordered Bo arrested. Bo Xilai was also arrested after attempting to hide some documents that were in their home from the Red Guards who were performing the arrest. Bo Xilai was ultimately imprisoned at a juvenile correction center for 5 years, where he and the children of other imprisoned leaders were forced to do labor on a farm. He was released when he was 23 and assigned a job at a factory in Beijing. He stayed there until he was 29, when China brought back the National College entrance exam shortly after Mao's death. He took the exam and began studying history at Peking University. He transferred to a master's program in journalism a little later, after his father was brought back into the government as vice premier without completing the prerequisite undergraduate program. I'm sure that timing was just a coincidence. He graduated in 1982, and having joined the Communist Party earlier in 1980, got a job as a researcher for the party's Central Committee Secretariat. Bo Xilai quickly became politically ambitious and requested a transfer to a place where he could have more of an impact. This was granted, and in 1984 he was sent to Jin County in northeastern China, today part of the city of Linghai. He wasn't really taken seriously here. It was an open secret that he just wanted Jin County to be a stepping stone for a political career elsewhere, so his initiatives were mostly ignored by other local officials. It doesn't seem he did much here, but his personal life had a development that will become very relevant later. In 1987, he married Gu Kailai, a lawyer from Beijing. I don't usually talk about people's personal lives in these videos, but she'll be important later. Bo moved to nearby Dalian in 1988, getting a job as a district party chief after his father pulled some strings. Gu Kailai also opened up a law firm here. He worked his way up to being mayor of the city in 1993 during a tough time for Dalian. Unemployment was high due to many people losing their jobs after government subsidies were cut for various industries. The city was also one of the most polluted in China and generally had a very poor reputation all around. Bo's focus became mainly on improving the city's image. He relocated about 100 polluting factories out of the city and turned their former locations into public squares and parks. The largest public square in Asia was constructed as part of this. He increased funding for sewage treatment plants, an effort to clean up the city's rivers, and allowed for greater development of beachfront areas to increase tourism. His measures mostly worked, and he received both national and international recognition for his efforts. Bo also took some steps to improve efficiency and discipline in the local government, which were well received by the public. Officials were issued pagers, and Bo would frequently randomly page these officials at different times of the day or night to check on what they were doing. We can see the beginnings of some of the sketchy activities that his career would be known for here in Dalian. The Shida Plastic Building Materials Company is a plastic manufacturer founded in Dalian in the early 1990s. The company quickly became closely tied to Bo Xilai, supplying many of the components for his public projects. Bo and the owner of the company, Xu Ming, who was the 8th richest person in China for a time, developed a close friendship. Bo encouraged Xu to diversify, which he did, expanding the company's factories to make home appliances, but also buying up real estate as investments. Bo also urged him to buy Dalian's soccer team, the best in China at the time. Despite Xu's reservations, he went along with it. This quickly turned into the two of them either bribing or outright purchasing other soccer teams for the sake of fixing games. By 2005, Shurda was a veritable conglomerate, owning dozens of companies across a wide range of industries. Bo Xilai left Dalian in January 2001 after his father once again found him a promotion, this time as the governor of Liaoning province. His last day as mayor was quite dramatic, with crowds of people surrounding the municipal government building hoping to see him off. It was later found these crowds weren't entirely organic, however, as many had been promised money to show up or even bags of Kentucky Fried Chicken, a fairly expensive American import at the time. Bo Xilai found Liaoning to be in a similar state to how he found Dalian. The province, and the whole region of northeastern China, was known as a rather bleak Rust Belt area. He teamed up with other provincial governors in the region, forming the Northeast Area Revitalization Organization, an economic pact for finding investors from South Korea and Japan. One of his first major public actions as governor was in 2002, when he cooperated with the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection in an investigation against the city government of Shenyang. The investigation found top officials in Shenyang had engaged in various illegal activities and were embezzling government funds, with links to local organized crime. The top officials involved were sentenced to death. I'm sure Bo really took the lesson here to heart. Bo would attempt to levy charges against another person afterwards, the entrepreneur Yang Rong. Yang had founded the Brilliance Auto Group in 1992, China's largest car manufacturer, and became the third richest person in China. When Bo heard that the company was planning to build a new factory, he lobbied hard for it to be built in Liaoning. When Ningbo, near Shanghai, was selected to be the site of the factory instead, Bo retaliated. He accused Yang of embezzling state funds and seized Yang's $700 million private share of the company. He went a step further and issued an arrest warrant. Luckily for Yang, he was informed of the impending warrant and fled to the United States. He engaged in a lengthy legal battle, going to Washington, D.C. to file a case against the Liaoning government. He alleged the government had acted illegally, and since he had never taken any funds from the government, they had no right to seize his private property. Ultimately, the case was dismissed by the D.C. court, finding the whole idea of asking two local governments in different countries to sue each other over essentially a property dispute to be ridiculous. Bo got into some hot water at home when he began frequently clashing with the party secretary for Liaoning province. The party secretary criticized him as only doing superficial things in his career, saying he was yet to do anything substantial and had been doing public relations stunts this whole time. Bo accused the party secretary of being responsible for several corruption scandals in reply. Beijing was aware of the friction between the two and was considering separating them to ease the tension. So, when the country's finance minister retired early in 2004 and a position opened up in Beijing, despite not having any finance experience, Bo was chosen to replace him. He was chosen mainly for his charismatic nature and the need for someone like that to represent China abroad. He participated in trade negotiations in both the United States and Europe at times when trade relations with both places were worsening. An issue at this time was the textile industry. China had been exporting cheap textiles, and these were now threatening jobs in the US and EU. Bo led negotiations to get restrictions on Chinese textile imports lifted, and he made a good impression on Western leaders he met with. Bo continued to be a rather harsh and micromanaging leader as commerce minister. He again issued pagers to all his subordinates and required them to be on call 24 hours a day. For these measures, some of his colleagues began calling him Mao Zedong Jr. behind his back. Bo got into disputes with his boss here, this time that boss being the vice premier of the whole country. He had attempted to go behind her back and reorganize the ministry, and fired a few of her associates. This clash again prompted a move. It's not uncommon in Chinese politics for there to be a regular reshuffling of officials to different posts and positions. Usually this is done to prevent complacency, or to prevent one official from getting too influential in a particular region or department. The president of China at this time, Hu Jintao, was in the middle of one of these reshuffles and decided to include Bo Xilai. It was decided sometime around September 2007 that he would be sent to Chongqing in southwestern China to serve as the party chief there. Bo's reassignment was initially met with resentment. He was reportedly seeking the position of vice premier and viewed the move as a demotion, even missing his first days of work. Southwestern China, particularly Chongqing, was at the time considered an underdeveloped backwater compared to the rich coastal cities. However, his advisors convinced him that Chongqing, with its 32 million residents, could serve as another significant stepping stone in his political career. This proved to be accurate. The central government, recognizing the unequal development between the coasts and the poorer inland regions, designated Chongqing as a model city for landlocked areas. In 1997, it was granted special privileges and political status, coming under direct oversight from Beijing. 4 previous secretaries had held this position, and none had made significant progress in improving the city. If Bo could do it, it would be a major boost for his career. His new position's importance was highlighted by his election to the Politburo around the same time. Bo's political ambition, no secret at this point, was to ascend the ladder, ultimately aiming for the Politburo Standing Committee. The Standing Committee is the highest decision-making body in China and comprises the very center of political power, concentrated in a group of 7 members. Joining it generally requires a long and successful career, and the process for joining is rather secretive. It is rare for anyone who is actively seeking or campaigning for a position in it to be offered one. Bo's 2 simultaneous promotions broke that rule, clearly implying that success in Chongqing would secure him a seat in that exclusive club. Bo had his work cut out for him when he arrived in Chongqing. About half of the city's population was living below the poverty line. The city was heavily polluted, and in the summer months, acid rain would fall. Protests against the city's corrupt officials and police were common sights outside government buildings. Bo's policies would be both ambitious and somewhat unusual. He was a self-proclaimed Maoist, which colored some of his social and economic policies. His policies were all relatively safe and populist, which would earn him high approval during his tenure. Bo built new low-income housing blocks, convinced foreign companies to open new factories in the city, and allowed migrant workers living in the city to have the same access to healthcare as locals. One of his more, I guess call it eccentric, campaigns was the Singing Red Songs campaign. Bo really wanted to revive a more old-school communist culture in the city, and so tried to repopularize many Mao-era patriotic songs. Government and party officials were required to sing them at certain events, and it proved popular with the wider public. He personally picked out songs to be burnt onto CDs and sold throughout the city. These songs were also played over the radio and on TV, and Red Song singing competitions were often held on national holidays. Some of the better singing troupes even did national tours. He sort of brought back another Mao-era practice by requiring government officials to carry little books with quotations from literary classics and famous people, both old and recent. A new government-run TV channel was also set up, broadcasting old communist movies 24 hours a day. All of this red culture was only one part of his program, however. The other important component was the rooting out of crime and corruption rampant in the city. This was primarily directed by the police chief of Chongqing, Wang Lijun. Wang Lijun is quite the character. With a long and decorated history working all around the country, he had acquired a somewhat legendary reputation by this point. His career in public security had begun as a volunteer for a neighborhood watch group in 1983, and he slowly worked his way up. He was assigned to various high-crime areas throughout his career, and was successful in curbing crime, though many of his methods were questioned, and some of the stories from this time are outlandish, to say the least. Early in his career, he once allegedly received a threatening phone call from a gang leader, and immediately went to meet him at a nearby train station, though the man never showed up. His career is full of these supposed recklessly brave actions he took, all conveniently things he did alone, so nobody can corroborate any of these. Once, during a raid on a hair salon, he had a man with dyed yellow hair who happened to be there arrested. The reason for this being, a man with hair like that can't be any good. He also allegedly used torture to extract confessions multiple times, something he would be investigated for repeatedly. During one of these investigations in 1999, he briefly considered seeking asylum at an American embassy to escape his legal troubles. Surely he would never do that, right? Wang Lijun came to Bo Xilai's attention in an utterly bizarre way. In 2007, Bo's wife, Bo Xilai, suspected that someone had been poisoning herbal medicine she was taking on a daily basis by adding lead and mercury to it. Xu Ming, Bo's friend from the Shida Plastics Company, got in contact with Wang Lijun, who promised to solve the case. Wang determined it was the family's driver and a house cleaner who were working together in an assassination plot against Gu and had them arrested. Gu claimed to have suffered neurological damage as a result of this, and Wang personally oversaw her medical treatment for some reason. Bo was distrustful of his current police chief, so in 2008 he gave the position to Wang Lijun. Now there's a decision that will never come back to bite him. Wang proved efficient in carrying out Bo's anti-crime campaigns, leading over 10,000 officers in a year-long anti-gang crackdown. He also was successful in curbing corruption within the local police, arresting over 1,000 officers on corruption charges by 2010. Wang used his popularity and tough-on-crime mandate to abuse his power both for his own and Bo's purposes. Local business owners, big and small, often found themselves arrested on serious criminal charges that came out of nowhere shortly after disagreements with Bo. Many of these people, as well as others detained in Chongqing during this period, recall extensive use of torture to extract confessions to crimes. Convicted people had their assets completely seized, and in most cases, no records exist for where any of these funds or possessions ended up. Wang also helped implement rather sophisticated large-scale digital surveillance and censorship in the region. Over 1,300 people were sent to mental institutions for posting negative comments about the local government online. Wang liked to brag about this system, claiming he had the whole country wiretapped, even alleging he could tap the phone of President Hu Jintao. Bo used the internet and mass media quite extensively during his time in Chongqing. He was always good at working with the media, an uncommon trait amongst Chinese politicians. He would occasionally make posts on Weibo and send text messages to the local area for communicating short messages. Bo also anonymously used overseas Chinese language websites, news sites and forums beyond the Great Firewall that provide uncensored news and discussion for those with access to a proxy. This wasn't an uncommon practice at the time. Many politicians would use them primarily for attacking their rivals, as Bo did repeatedly. One such person he attacked was Wen Jiabao, the premier of China. Wen Jiabao had been an early fan of Bo Xilai back when he was finance minister, and was reportedly recommending him for higher offices. After Bo went to Chongqing, however, Wen began to quietly criticize him. Wen was troubled by his Maoist cultural campaigns and overly harsh crackdowns on crime, and refused to endorse these policies as other senior leaders had. Wen also secretly instructed the Ministry of State Security to investigate some of Bo Xilai's overseas financial activity beginning around 2009. A few irregularities with Bo Xilai's personal finances were apparent, and things were only looking worse for him the more people dug. His son, Bo Guagua, was the most obvious discrepancy. He was studying abroad at prestigious and very expensive universities in the UK and US, where the yearly tuition alone eclipsed his parents' salaries. The initial investigation seemed to point to Xu Ming paying for his education, though this ended up being quite the rabbit hole. At first, it seemed as if Xu Ming was covering these expenses as a favor to Bo, but the amount of money he was moving out of the country was simply too much. The explanation given for this was that he was helping handle Gu Kailai's money, as she was now running a consultancy group for foreigners wishing to invest in China. So, how this was working is Bo would turn political favors into money. That money would be laundered through Gu's businesses, which Xu Ming would then move safely out of the country. Once it was out of the country, it was handled by another man, a British citizen named Neil Heywood. Heywood's job was primarily to move money to safe offshore accounts and handle purchases and investments of things outside of China. He also arranged Bo Guagua's education and life abroad. Heywood first met the Bo family sometime in the late 90s when he was hired as an English tutor for Bo Guagua. Heywood's career slowly shifted to a consultancy position where he helped British companies set up factories in China. Discord between Heywood and Bo began around 2008 when a business deal between the two fell through. Some land in Chongqing had been set aside for development by foreign investors, but this either wasn't possible for political reasons or Heywood failed to find investors. It isn't exactly clear. Heywood demanded 10% of the promised £140 million commission for the deal anyway, though this was refused. He apologized shortly after, however, when he met with Gu at the Beijing Olympics and acknowledged his request was inappropriate. It was around this time the Ministry of State Security began an investigation into Heywood, believing him to potentially be a British intelligence agent. This was due to his association with Hacklet, a British consultancy firm founded by former MI6 personnel. Bo was informed of this investigation in 2010 and was advised to cut off all contact with Heywood, as this association could jeopardize his career. Bo immediately ordered his wife and son to cease all contact with Heywood, and they did for a brief period, but both would get back in contact. Gu, increasingly paranoid and somewhat delusional, sent him an email demanding he divorce his Chinese wife, which he disregarded. Heywood and Bo Guagua also kept in email contact. The suspicion of him being an intelligence agent was slightly exaggerated, but not entirely unfounded. He did occasionally pass private information about the Bo family to Hacklet. In July of 2011, Heywood, now facing financial difficulties, pressed the issue of his supposed owed commission once again. He met with Bo Guagua, who pretty much told him the matter was already settled and not to bother with this. In response, Heywood allegedly held him hostage for several hours while demanding Gu send him the money. Gu responded by calling him a lunatic and asked Wang Lijun to handle the situation. Wang refused, as this happened in the UK, and he was powerless to do anything. Real heroic. Heywood let him go that same day, but he wasn't done pestering him, and continuously brought it up throughout 2011. He traveled to China to keep pressing it. The family eventually threatened legal action, and in response, he threatened to leak the Bo family's illegal financial transactions to the media. Heywood allegedly sent a threatening email to Bo Guagua in November, which Wang Lijun brought to Gu's attention to convince her that he would need to be gotten rid of permanently. Gu Kailai and Wang Lijun hatched a quite elaborate plan to kill Heywood. First, they invited him to Chongqing to meet with them in person. Once he was checked into his hotel, Gu met him there, and aware of his low alcohol tolerance, offered him whiskey. He quickly became drunk, and Gu forcibly administered cyanide to him to kill him. Gu proceeded to scatter pills around the room to make it look like an accidental poisoning. Before leaving, she put the Do Not Disturb sign on his room and told the hotel supervisor not to bother him as he had too much to drink. The next day, Gu met with Wang and recounted the murder to him. Wang, however, was secretly recording this conversation, planning to use it as leverage against Bo. Heywood was found dead a few days later, and Wang Lijun was one of the first police officers on the scene. His death was ruled an accident, and he was cremated without an autopsy. Can I say something? Can I say that if you showed me a picture of a comically corrupt provincial politician and his wife who poisons people, this is exactly how I'd expect them to look? Gu and Bo both became very paranoid about what happened. Wang Lijun feared that he might be killed too for knowing too much. His staff were being pressured by Gu to destroy any evidence related to the case. Wang brought up the murder to Bo in February of 2012, believing he was unaware of Gu's involvement. Bo responded with hostility, allegedly slapping him, so Wang, now rightfully fearful of him, went to the US consulate in the nearby city of Chengdu. There, he requested asylum, saying he feared for his life and was in possession of evidence that Heywood was murdered. His request for asylum was denied, and he left voluntarily 2 days later. He was picked up by Chinese officials and sent to Beijing. But the damage was done, and Wang Lijun's attempted defection would ultimately lead to Bo's downfall. The news of this event had already spread online throughout China. Such a high-profile figure doing something like this was unprecedented and was a sign that something seriously bad must have happened behind the scenes. This all came at a terrible time nationally, too. Hu Jintao was due to be replaced as president in 2012, and this was essentially a political nuke going off in the middle of all that. The walls began closing in around Bo in the first half of 2012, with international news now reporting on the political conflict in Chongqing. One rumor that became a favorite of foreign media was that Bo Guagua allegedly drove a red Ferrari while living abroad. Bo addressed this at a press conference, creating probably the second most famous Chinese press conference crash-out.
也有不少人给重庆泼脏水，包括给我本人给家庭泼脏水，甚至说到我儿子在外边学习怎么开红色法拉利，一派胡言，我感到非常气愤，一派胡言。
The rumor about a red Ferrari specifically turned out not to be true, though he did get multiple tickets in Massachusetts while driving a black Porsche, so I feel like the spirit of the accusation holds true. In March, the leadership of Chongqing was criticized by Wen Jiabao of the National People's Congress. Just the next day, Bo was removed from his post as Chongqing Party Secretary. He was arrested shortly after and was brought to Beijing on charges of serious discipline violations. Authorities also announced they would be reopening the Heywood case and that Gu Kailai was a suspect. Gu's trial was in August, where she didn't contest the murder charge, but explained that she took the actions she did out of concern for her son. The court was lenient for the charges, giving her a suspended death sentence, later commuted to life imprisonment. The court cited her confessing to the crime as the main reason for mercy. There is little information about what has happened to her since, other than she's reportedly been on good behavior in prison. Bo was expelled from the Communist Party in September, around the same time as Wang Lijun's trial. Wang was charged with abuse of power, bribe-taking, bending the law for personal gain, and defection for the incident at the consulate. The only charge his defense team disputed was the bribery one, saying he never actually took any money personally. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 15 years in prison. His status now is mostly unknown, though he's rumored to be in Qingcheng Prison, a special facility mainly for holding those charged with political crimes. Bo Xilai's trial began in August of 2013 on charges of bribery, embezzlement, corruption, and abuse of power. Unusually for a trial of this nature in China, it was very public, and transcripts were posted live online. Bo was argumentative and combative during his trial, often arguing directly with the witnesses brought by the government. One witness was Xu Ming, who testified that he gave bribes to Bo and frequently purchased things, such as a villa in France, for the family. Xu Ming was found guilty in a separate trial for bribery and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Throughout his trial, Bo pretty much tried to pin everything on everyone else. Gu was brought back to testify that she had indeed received gifts from Xu Ming, and Bo responded by calling her insane. Wang Lijun also testified, which would be disastrous for Bo. Wang recounted how he informed him of Heywood's murder, but Bo covered it up instead. He also said that Bo was perfectly aware of the shady financial dealings and chose not to do anything about it. Bo was found guilty on all charges in September 2013 and was sentenced to life in prison. He tried appealing, but this was immediately rejected. He was also sent to Qingcheng Prison and still maintains his innocence to this day. His family published a letter from him shortly after he was sentenced, where he claims his name will be cleared one day, though that seems pretty unlikely at this point. Bo was, and still is to a very limited degree, an influential figure in Chinese politics. In a period where the party seemed dedicated and bent on liberal westernizing reforms, Bo was advocating a return to some Mao-era policies and politics. He was one of the only politicians to openly criticize privatization and the growing wealth inequality in the country. His Chongqing model, emphasizing public housing and social programs, gained popularity with a working class that was feeling increasingly forgotten. His attempts at reviving an older school socialist culture appealed to both nationalists in the country and those longing for a time when the government actively promoted equality. His downfall would be a mortal wound for leftist opposition in China, especially since it coincided with the rise of Xi Jinping. Xi has underscored the need for unity in the party, and straying from the set course as Bo did is now much more difficult or perhaps impossible. The new left's ideas are now sequestered to university campuses and abstract opinion pieces, with his ardent and most vocal advocate now behind bars. Some of Xi's own ideas and policies, such as his anti-poverty campaigns and limited resurgence of some elements of red culture, have been interpreted as concessions to the new left. Bo's career and downfall encapsulates what is both possible and unacceptable in Chinese politics. He was quite popular for a long time, and many saw his policies as a viable alternative to what Beijing pushes. But so much hinged on him, his charisma, skill with the media, as well as the personal network he built to support himself. When that all came crashing down, it took much of the new left with it.
您拨的号码不存在，请查询后再拨，谢谢。